Hello, I'm Carly. Welcome to Point Blank's Friday Forum Live. We are a music school. We offer BA degrees which are certified by Middlesex University, as well as a wide range of courses which include music production, DJing and sound engineering. If you'd like to find out more about these courses, just head to our website, pointblankmusicschool.com. Today we are streaming live from Studio 5 at our school in London, and I am joined by our content developer, Ski Oakenfull, for an overview of Arturia's new DX7V. He's going to be also doing one of his classic deconstructions. We are streaming live and we love your questions, so if you do have any, just type them in the comment section and we will get to them shortly. Hello, Ski.
Hey Carly, how are you doing?
Good. We're making our on-screen debut.
No, why is it taking this long?
I don't know, because you're always busy.
I know, but you know, we need to do more of these, definitely.
Yeah. So I know you're a big fan of the original Yamaha DX7. You've even brought yours in from home today.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about the original machine?
Okay, so, well, it was my first ever keyboard. It's great, and I've got a few little mementos.
What year did you buy it in?
Don't really want to say, but let's just say 80s. Well, it came out in 1983 and it stopped manufacturing in 1989.
Okay, so that gives us a window.
Yeah. It was one of the best, synthesizers of all time, or best-selling synthesizers of all time. Yeah, I've got the manual here. I don't know if you can see that. Just loving the graphics.
Loving those colours.
I can't believe what good quality this is as well. Good condition, I mean. But yeah, it's a classic keyboard. It's got MIDI on it, MIDI compatible, so it means you could record it and you could trigger other synths from it as well. It had a very kind of raw sound, so there were no effects built into it. Not like some of the later synths like the Roland D50 or the Korg M1. So it's kind of, even though it sort of sounded great, for some people when it came to programming it, I think it kind of put them off a little bit because they didn't know how to immediately get a good sound. But it had a very solid sound to it. Okay. So the first band that I was in, the K Creative, I actually used it to play all the bass lines. So I had a Fender Rhodes, I played the chords with my right hand and play all the bass, and it always really kind of cut through the system. So yeah, I mean, you know, I'll just play you one of the sounds now. This is the electric piano sound. That's like one of the most famous sounds it had, and it was kind of massively overused in the 80s. A lot of those kind of R&B tracks and pop tracks, you know, use that sound. But it was also used by a lot of kind of really cool people as well, like Brian Eno. I'm a massive fan of Brian Eno, and here we go. There's a picture of him there. This is a great documentary, actually. You can find on the internet, called Imaginary Landscapes. And around the 80s and 90s, he was using a DX7 a lot and programming it himself. I've got this album here called Textures by Brian Eno. It's extremely rare because it didn't come out commercially. This was a library album that he did.
Oh, really?
But I thoroughly recommend checking this out because it's got DX7 all over it. It's ambient stuff, but it's you know, you can even hear it now used on TV shows, TV programs. But Brian Eno actually had one of these things. It's a Jellinghouse DX programmer. So this actually made it a lot easier to program. The way it is at the moment is you've just got all these sort of push buttons. So you literally have to kind of go in and adjust the sounds just with this data entry slider. But whereas what this did is that actually it just kind of pulled all those controls out, and you could actually manipulate it and sort of see it in front of you. So that probably made it a bit easier. Okay,
cool. So this is an FM synthesizer.
Yes.
What, like in a nutshell, what is the difference? Do you hate this question?
No.
What is the difference between analog synthesis and FM?
Okay, so I couldn't resist showing this actually. When I was at school, I did a kind of very small little project on FM synthesis. You know, I had the DX7, so I was very lucky. But it's basically, FM stands for frequency modulation. So just kind of going back a little bit, analog or subtractive synthesis traditionally uses VCOs, voltage controlled oscillators, which generate different waveforms. So you've got sawtooth, square, pulse wave, and sine as well. And the way that they're controlled is the harmonics of those waveforms are attenuated using filters, like a low-pass filter or a high-pass filter. So you're basically sort of taking away harmonics, hence the term subtractive synthesis. FM has a completely different system where the oscillators are sine waves. And you have two different types, and they're called operators. So the actual, in FM synthesis, those oscillators are called operators. And you either have a carrier or a modulator. Now the carrier is the thing that actually generates the sound, but it's modulated by the modulator. So I don't know if you can sort of see this diagram here. Operators 1 and 3 are the carriers, but they're being modulated by all the operators above them. So basically what happens is that you can change the waveform by the modulator. So it sounds like very, very strange, and it's a mystery to how it works, but it was invented by a guy called Dr. John Chowning. He was a lecturer at Stanford University, and he actually, Stanford licensed it to Yamaha in 1973, I think, or 1974. It's been around for a long time, and it wasn't until the 80s that they actually developed it enough to release it into a commercial synth. But the main difference, I would say, is that it's better at creating more percussive sounds and more bell-like sounds, and also great for pads and things as well, but a lot of sounds that couldn't before be generated with analog synthesis. So I think that was when it was sold, it was like, well, look, you can recreate guitars and bass sounds and, in a far more authentic way. So yeah, that's kind of FM synthesis in a nutshell. I mean,
it's a notoriously difficult concept to get your head around. How do we teach FM synthesis at Point Blank?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think that's part of the appeal is the mystery of it. But actually, when you start playing around with it, you can start seeing how to create sounds. And I'll give a quick demo in a minute of just like a very basic carrier and a modulator and how you can just create something. But as far as Point Blank goes, I'm going to just see if I can get our website up here. Oh, by the way, yeah, this is Dr. John Chowning, and there's a great article on him. Hopefully you can see that there, but I thoroughly recommend checking out that. So anyway, in our BA program, we have two modules, sound design modules, sound design and advanced sound design. And let's just have a look at sound design here. There we go. So we actually spend 2 weeks on FM synthesis in week 4 and 5. And yeah, we try to make it as not platform specific, just try to kind of teach the concepts, because there's actually quite a lot of synths out there and software synths as well that can actually create what you can use for FM synthesis sound design. But yeah, we teach it that, and then in advanced sound design we use reactor and blocks and the primary level devices as well to actually create FM sounds. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, should we have a look at Arturia's version?
Yes, absolutely. So okay, so here we go. I've got it here. I've also got Live 10, got the Live 10 beta, which I'm loving, absolutely loving. It's great. And let's just get Brian Eno out of the way here. So I demonstrated this sound earlier. This is a classic sound. So just looking at the library functions, I think that's often what a lot of people do, is they just go straight into the presets and see what there is. So as with all the other Arturia devices, there's this little kind of library icon. So if you click on that, you can actually start scrolling through. And they've actually got some featured ones at the side, I think, to sort of show it off. So there's that one, which is obviously the classic. Then the next one is this shamisen. So obviously you can hear now how it's so good for those kind of plucked sounds. But then, I mean, the third sound in, and I'm like, this is probably one of my most favourite presets ever. It's something that they've created. I mean, it's pure kind of Blade Runner, Hans Zimmer, just gorgeous, so really great sounds. Let's go down to another one here. Now, one thing to note actually is that they've got this velocity control here. So you can either set it so it reacts as a DX7 would react with velocity, or you can change it to full range. Now, one of the quirks of the original DX7 and MIDI is that it would only output 100. So the velocity level goes from 1 to 127, and it would only actually transmit at 100, which is a bit weird. So it's not really the greatest keyboard to have as a master keyboard. You can have it, there are workarounds, certainly in Ableton, there's a velocity device, so you can force it, you sort of add the extra velocity amount. But to like properly, with this keyboard, certainly to properly hear the effect of the sound, I'm just switching it to full. So it's sounding great. I mean, what are the differences between this and the original DX7? Well, first of all, the original DX7 didn't have filtering on it, so it adds a filter. If I just go back here, you've got the filter. It's got a modulation matrix, which is really good. So you can see some here. You can map LFOs to panning. This is a great sound, actually. Also, quite crucially, I mentioned before that the operators just created sine waves. You've actually got more of a range of oscillators, waves here. So you've got, there we go, pulse, square. So this kind of adds like a whole new load of possibilities. And also you've got effects. So I mentioned before that there were no effects, but it's now got some of the great Arturia effects. So you've got delays and reverbs and compressors and that kind of thing. So yeah, it really opens up the world of FM synthesis. So what I was going to do is just quickly, just to kind of go back on how FM works, just give a very, very basic demo of how it could work. So I'm just going on here. These, you can access all the presets with this menu here, which just says all types. So I'm going to go to the template part there, and where it says init voice, stands for initial voice, and there we go. So this is just a sine wave. So let's just go back to the overview here, and you should be able to see here, this is using algorithm 1. With the DX7 there are 32 different algorithms, and they're all kind of written here, and these are just basically the different arrangements of the operators. So we're just sticking to algorithm 1, and we're just going to use the first two operators, so operator 1 and 2. And operator 1 is the carrier, operator 2 is the modulator. So all it is playing at the moment is a sine wave. And one great thing as for an educational purpose is there's an oscilloscope here, so you can just see that that's a sine wave, which is really useful. So let's just go to the envelope, and this is how we can shape the sound. So I'm just going to give this, at the moment it's got a very sharp attack, and when you take your finger off, it just stops immediately. So let's just make that so it's a smoother attack. And actually, another sort of quite interesting thing about this Arturia is that you can zoom in and out of the envelope in a sort of similar way you can in Ableton. So if I just zoom in, there we go. And I love the fact that it's got this little kind of dot that goes up on the wave for the envelope. So that's very slow. There we go. So let's just shape this a little bit. So I'm giving that a bit of release as well. Okay, so you can actually set the envelope for each operator, and it's very easy. If you wanted to copy that envelope to another operator, you just click on this little button here and then copy over there, and it's copied it to operator 2. But at the moment, the level of operator 2 is 0. So I'm just going to bring that in, and if you just look at the oscilloscope, you can see that it's changing. So you can see the tones changing. Now where it gets interesting is you can actually change the frequency of this, and this is what it's going to be actually affecting the waveform. So there is our sort of classic FM sound. So it sounds a bit kind of atonal at the moment, but let's just bring it down. So it's already quite usable. Let's just go to the effects section, and let's just try some reverb. There we go. I'm going to make that add a bit more. And this is where you can actually get some kind of really interesting ambient type kind of film effects. So already we've kind of got something literally just from initial voice, and I'm not going to go too much deeper into this, but all I'd say is just throw yourself into it. You know, it's only until you actually start experimenting and trying some things out that you realise sort of what type of effect you can get. And it's actually when you start, before I copied over that envelope, it's when you actually start adjusting the envelope rates of the different operators that you get some more interesting sounds as well. So, yeah.
And how does it compare sonically to the original? Could you tell the difference?
Well, no. I mean, obviously, if you really kind of analysed it, you couldn't. But I would say compared to a lot of the other VSTs or plugins that are out there, this is the closest.
Amazing.
I mean, it really is amazing. I know there's quite a lot of other videos out there at the moment where people have done all these comparisons. You know, they've kind of recorded it into their DAW, like all the different kind of FMs and hardware versions or whatever, and tried to compare them. But it's pretty amazing. I have to say they've done a really good job.
And how much is it? 100 quid or something?
I don't know the exact price,
I think
but but it's also part of their Arturia 6 package, V package. So go and check it out. Actually, I've actually kind of got this up here so you can have a quick look. There we go. Just go onto their website and you can see. I mean, part of the package you just get loads of other synths as well. You know, the ARPs and Moogs, Wurlitzer, Rhodes. So yeah, I thoroughly recommend it. It's really great.
So today you're going to be recreating a track called Twilight.
Yes.
By Maze.
Yes, that's right.
80s banger.
It is an 80s banger. It's one of these kind of underground tracks that has become a classic. It came out in 1985, I believe. So a couple of years after the DX7 was released. And what's interesting about it is it's pretty much all the sounds are created with the DX7. DX7 presets as well. So it's great, yeah. Featuring Frankie Beverly. I'm not sure if it was just him in the studio having a jam or how it worked out, but it wasn't even the main track on the 12-inch that came out. That was Too Many Games, but it came out on the A side. And yeah, they did a kind of extended version of it as well. Should we have a little look at Maze?
Yeah. Whoa.
Cool guys.
Very cool guys.
Yeah. So I thought it'd be quite cool just to, put the parts in and just sort of see how it sounds, really.
Great, okay.
Okay, so let's go back to live. And what I've done, just to sort of save time, rather than programming the beat, I've already programmed in 2 patterns. And this is on the Lindrum, and these are the Ableton. This is the Ableton Lindrum sounds, the Kit LD Classic. So we've got this first pattern here. This is sort of for the intro section, and then it comes in with this. And this is the standard kit. I've added that little woodblock sound, but again, that's an Ableton sound, and there's a little capacitor as well I've added in there. Okay. And I've used some internal reverb just on that drum rack. But what I'm absolutely loving about Live 10 is the drum bus. I demonstrated it in the video I did a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
But if we listen to it with and without, so this is with, it's suddenly sounding quite sort of thin. It just adds all these kind of rich, crunchy harmonics, and I'm using it on everything at the moment. But it's really good. I'm really loving that. So let's get to the first sound.
Okay.
I've got push here as well. So this is a classic DX sound. I think I'm using the word classic too much, but let's just have a look at that. It's the woodblock sound. Actually, Marimba. That's gone very big. I'm not sure why that is. But anyway, it's the Marimba sound. I've got it written down as a woodblock. But so this is great. And what I'm going to do is just bring up the VMPK so you can hopefully see what I'm playing. Now the part here, if I just play this one. So that's the main hook. And just a little bit of music theory.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so just the key of this is F minor. Okay, so the F minor scale is this. And it's got 4 flats. We've got A flat, B flat, D flat, and E flat. So all the notes that I'm playing in this track are all using those notes. Okay, all using that scale. So yeah, let's put that in. I'm also going to use the new capture feature as well, which I'm loving on live, which means I can just basically kind of jam along, and then when I'm happy with it, I can just capture it. Right, so I haven't actually recorded that. If I just press record and new, it's captured it. There we go. Just give it a bit of quantize. And then there's a part that goes over the top of that, which is this. Now this is playing a chord. So we've got, if we just play a standard triad of F minor, it's these notes here, but we can play an inversion where we just take the bottom note I'm playing and take it up an octave, and then we can go again and play it there, and that's the second inversion. So all I'm doing is just playing that over the top. So let's just record this in. There we go. I think I've...
Very tropical.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. So that's the first part. And the next one, now this really is a very kind of, I'm not going to use the word classic, this has already been overused. This is a legendary sound.
Legendary.
Yes.
That is a good word.
Yes, it's the solid bass or the lately bass, and it's this. Now, that's why I think this track can be considered a bit of a proto-house track, because this sound was used so much in house tracks, early house tracks. Orbital Chime, for example, is a classic example of using this track. This is the bass line. So let's record that in. There we go. So let's use capture again. I'm just going to quantize it, and let's just get the start point. Okay, so we're getting there. Right, the next sound is this pad sound. Now, this is a standard DX7 preset sound. For some reason, it's gone really massive. I don't know what's going on there. Let's try and resize it. Sort of. Anyway, but it's one of the ROM. You've got these ROM packs here, and that's how the presets were delivered. And so you'd load them in. So this is from ROM 2, and it's bank A, and it's strings 5. So let me just play this. And I basically just put some Ableton chorus on it and a bit of reverb as well. So let's just record that in. So again, I'm playing a bit of an inversion. That's like A flat major 7, but because we're playing it over F, it makes it into an F minor 9, and I'm just playing. I'm not playing the root note or the tonic, but I'm just switching this note here up here, so we get this beautiful chord. So that's really nice. Right, let's go to the next sound. Now this is a classic. I'll use it again. It's like I need to put money in a jar every time I say it, but okay, so this is a bell sound, and this just kind of, it's just literally just one note, but I'm going to put it in just because it should be there, really. Not the hardest part in the world. There we go. Frankie Beverly was having a laugh, wasn't he, when he put that part in, but in a good way, though. Okay, so we've got those parts in. What I'm going to do now is just copy those down so we can start adding some other things. Okay. It's going to start getting exciting now. So we can do this from the session view, the layout on push. I'm just going to copy over the woodblock sounds and the bass. There we go. And then if I go to the next scene, it plays it with the full beat. So we've got this one. Let's go to the next scene.
Right.
Rocking. Right. So I'm going to leave that scene as it is, and then flip onto the next one, and there's this really nice little brass part here, which we can hear. Again, this is another DX. What's a better word than classic? It's a very well-known sound. It's a prop.
We need to get out the source out.
We do. Okay. So let's just put this part in. Very syncopated. Gives it the funk. Okay, so we're going to leave that there on that scene, and then we're going to put the next part in. Now this is an interesting sound because it's one that personally I always avoided. It's a DX clav sound, again one of the presets. So when I was analysing the track to deconstruct it, I was quite surprised that they used it, but how they use it is really good. It's a sort of funky part, so let's put that in. So over the top of that, we've got this guitar riff. Now this is lovely. So it's an example of how the DX is so good at these kind of guitar plucky kind of sounds. So let's put that part in. Pretty simple. There we go. So we've pretty much got all the key elements. There are some other things that happen in the track, like there's some strings and things can come in, but I'm going to copy those clips down now. Oops. And there's a vocal in the track, and I thought I'd have a go at the vocal. Exactly. Okay. So I didn't spend too long on it, but if I just play that to you now.
Whoa, is that you, Ski?
It's me. Let's just have a quick look at that. So I tracked myself up six times.
Yeah.
So we've got, these are the initial ones. See, it sounds a bit out of tune. I didn't use any auto-tune.
I think it sounds good.
Actually, I did it more than 6. I did it 8 times. There we go. There we go. So.
Did you ever do backing vocals in the band?
Sometimes, yeah, I would do backing vocals. But yeah, let's just go through the sections now. We can have a jam, basically. Maybe we should do a remix. Just put it out. So if I just mute the drums, all these sounds come from the Arturia DX.
Wow.
I mean, you know, it's like having unlimited DX7s. And believe me, you don't really want to have more than one of these because they're really heavy to move around and they take up a lot of space. So the fact that they're all in here is great. So yeah, I'm super impressed with it. It's great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's
been really good fun. Yeah, definitely.
And if you would like to learn more about music production, just head to our website, pointblankmusicschool.com, where you can find out more about our courses. Have a good weekend. See you soon.